Nope.
Nope. Hey, it's Dr. Angela Denver's weight loss expert from MedFit Medical Weight Loss. And this is Janelle, our registered dietitian, and we are on part 3 of Fads Are Bad. So in case you didn't catch part 1 and part 2, you are missing out. We talked about juicing, detox,
cabbage soup.
Yeah, the cabbage soup, blood type diet. Lots and lots of diets that you guys are doing out there that are wasting your time. So why do I have the finger? Because I thought, you know, in light of Super Bowl, I'm still, yes, a Broncos fan, but it is Super Bowl weekend and we are going to get you on track and make sure that you are following the right diet. So we actually saved the best diets for last. So again, we're going to talk about what you guys are doing, the pros and cons, and then have you come to our office and then let us help you figure out what works and get you on the right track. So, all right, let's start.
Okay, so the first one that I really kind of wanted to touch on is the Whole30 and kind of the clean eating aspect. So the Whole30 diet, there are pros to that and the clean eating, because the pros of that is that you're really trying to eat more fresh foods, less processed foods. So the Whole30 essentially eliminates alcohol, any type of sugar. However, some of the cons that I find is that it eliminates your beans, soy, all dairy products as well.
Yeah, in fact, I actually even considered doing the Whole30. Again, a good portion of my patients are doing the Whole30, but I'm Asian, and I can't take out soy, so yeah, it was difficult for me. So you guys might know that it's difficult to take out soy out of your diet, but give me a heart if you actually tried it, because I actually do know that many people have tried it and haven't been successful. So let's talk a little bit more about the details of it.
Okay, like I was saying, you know, the claims are there's weight loss, you have kind of that better like insulin sensitivity, it reduces your blood sugar, it reduces the inflammation. Kind of what you were talking about with the soy aspect, as a dietitian, that's where I kind of struggle with understanding the Whole30. It's excluding a lot of different foods that actually have nutritional benefits. So I know, like you said, soy, coming from the Asian culture, that's
Yes.
very hard. Soy is actually one of the best complete proteins for someone who is vegetarian or vegan, essentially. And working with oncology patients before, that was always a question that a lot of breast cancer patients had. Research actually shows that soy during adolescence may actually be beneficial or helpful, and again, in moderate amounts, it's actually really good for your heart health.
Yep, and so you don't have to be afraid of eating soy. There aren't any studies that prove that it contributes to increased risk in cancer. So I know that was a question for people.
Yeah, and another thing is beans. So again, beans are a great source of protein for people who are vegan or vegetarian. They are great sources of fiber. So there's no real reason to completely cut those out of your diet. Same with dairy. I just feel like a lot of times what happens is if you're completely cutting out these foods where there's no research showing that nutritionally it's not going to hurt you, you could potentially put yourself at risk for a nutritional deficiency.
Yep, and it's actually kind of funny. I listened to the creator. I believe she was on a recent podcast. It was with Lewis Howes. Howes, who I follow. Make sure you catch him on his podcast. But she had actually a really particular, unique background, and I think the secret of the Whole30 is basically follows sort of every foundation that we all are looking for is structure. So number one, she actually gives you sort of the rules of the game. So you either play or you don't. So it's, even though there's a lot of restriction, it's pretty clear cut. You really kind of know what you can and cannot do. I think that's one of the benefits. Obviously, the second benefit is that it technically is an elimination diet. So what she forces you to do is to look at sort of the whole foods, sort of like get some of, like, for example, like dairy, that is a pro-inflammatory type of ingredient. And if you struggle with diabetes, if you have arthritis issues, family history, that will actually promote that. And so literally, if you eliminate it, of course you're going to feel better, have more energy, and lose weight. So there's a lot of like hidden foundation type of things that everybody is using, but it's wrapped into a very nice brand name. And I think if it works for you, great. But I also believe that, again, it's the hidden trick is why it works, is because it's the structure, eliminating the processed foods, which is what you can do in other various forms of the diet. So, but yeah, it was good, and make sure you listen to the podcast. It was a very interesting, unique story, and I totally respect the creator of it. But again, it's only one diet, doesn't fit all. So, all right, so let's talk about the paleo diet.
Yes, so the paleo diet, basically it refers back to caveman days. So you're really kind of doing the hunter-gatherer style, eating what they would. Berries, as for fruit, your nuts, a lot of your proteins, oils, avocado, coconut, olive, kind of a lot of the grass-fed, meat, and butter, and then you're eliminating things like a lot of your grains, and then your dairy as well.
Yeah, so I think that the paleo diet works well. Obviously, you have to still fall within it. You can't really, what I call, color outside the lines. So you can't really make up your own rules. I think that a lot of people sort of follow the paleo, but then, they add this and this, and it doesn't really fall into that, and that's why they struggle a little bit with the paleo. But I like the paleos because it promotes foods that make you feel full. I think it's probably one of the advantages, because it's a very healthy fat promoter. But what else do you think is the downfall of the paleo? Why are there some people who actually aren't losing weight like the others?
So the struggle that I find with the paleo diet is, yes, it is low in carbs. Yes, it is high in protein. It's actually high, though, in all types of fat. So if you're familiar with the bulletproof coffee, that's actually drinking a cup of coffee with your grass-fed butter into it. The diet actually promotes that and says it's okay. When you're trying to lose weight, that's 400 calories. If you're eating breakfast, like you should be with that could put you up to 700 or 800 calories. Another thing, too, that is approved in the paleo diet is bacon, which bacon is very high in saturated fat, which isn't necessarily good for our heart. So that's kind of a downfall and a con to that as well.
Yeah, and if you're not used to eating that much fat, you're not really going to enjoy it, per se. The second thing is a lot of fat on your body, digestive issues. So if you have other ones that you live with, you might want to let them know that you're on the paleo diet, and so that you can't blame the dog, for anything. But again, it has worked for several people, but it hasn't worked for everybody. So you want to be careful to not necessarily jump on that train either. But if it makes sense to you, I promote it for sure. But if, again, there are things that, like I said, I'm not too fond of just eating bacon so freely, and then I think I'd be curious to try butter in my coffee, but again, that's actually added fat. We're talking about just fat that's part of the macronutrients of your meal, but not so much the added outside fat. So, we got a question.
What is the best diet for someone who no longer has a gallbladder?
Oh, that's a great question. You want to make some suggestions?
Do you want to, or do you want me to?
Sure. So just to let you know, that's a fabulous question. So the gallbladder actually is made to break down fat. And so if you don't have that function, it makes this very special chemical called bile acids, and that actually causes you to break down fatty foods. Now that's actually why people have trouble with their gallbladder, is if they have sort of a higher fat content, then it can actually cause irritation. Some people develop stones, and then therefore it gets infected. It needs to be taken out. I actually do recommend more of the low carb approach still. because what happens is that we're not necessarily adding fat, but we've got a tight ratio where it makes you feel full, plus it's actually more protein focused. That's really what you need to switch to. So now that you have a gallbladder or you don't have a gallbladder where it doesn't really break down fat as well, you want to focus more on lean proteins and veggies, and the low carb diet is going to be your go-to. And honestly, gallbladder or not, you're still going to feel fabulous, and you don't have to deal with some of the downsides of not having gallbladder. But thanks for that question. That was a great one. So, but yeah, like I said, we talked about the Whole30, we talked about the Paleo. Let's talk about the last but not least diet that everybody's doing out there, particularly as we speak. So what is it?
So intermittent fasting, there are actually different types of intermittent fasting. So there are different criteria that you can fit into. So there is intermittent fasting that basically you kind of do it on a daily basis. So it's usually like a 6:1 ratio or a 5:2 ratio. With that kind of ratio, basically what you're doing is you have 5 or 6 regular feasting or eating days and 1 to 2 fasting days. When you have your fasting days, you're usually allotted sometimes 500 calories in that time period that you're allowed all day. When it comes to intermittent fasting, you're more focused on when you're eating rather than what you're eating per se. When it comes to fasting during the day, there are also what we call 16-8. So you have 16 fasting hours, 8 feeding. Usually I would say people do this around 8 p.m. until 12 p.m. the following day. But there's also 24. So you actually fast for 20 hours and then you feast for 4. When you're doing those during the day, most people are only eating 1 to 2 meals within their feeding time period that they're actually allowed to do.
Now make sure you pop in the questions, because I know you guys are, really curious, because this is, yes, the latest fad diet out there. I have inadvertently done intermittent fasting, not by choice, but you get to the point where, especially when you're in residency, you are so tired and your schedule is off. There are actually days where you basically are seeing patients from 8 p.m. until noon, and you can't even stop and you don't see a thing. But I do, granted, yes, I was awake in the middle of the night, but I felt dizzy, I felt weak. I'm not certain if that was the type of diet that I could handle if I were to lose weight. But Dr. Jason Fung, he is a nephrologist, a very well-respected nephrologist who wrote the obesity code, and he is essentially sort of, I guess, the founder of intermittent fasting. And there are studies that do clinically show good results when it comes to controlling your insulin levels, lowering your blood sugar, and in fact it even shows how to break the plateau. However, again, I really want to emphasize it doesn't work for everybody. I mean, we actually do have overweight patients who stay busy, who only eat 1 meal a day, and they come and ask me and say, why can't I lose weight? I only eat maybe 500 calories a day. And what happens is that your body type is not like an 18-year-old boy. You don't have the musculature, you don't have the genetics. Your metabolism, instead of controlling the insulin, is actually going into storage. It's actually doing the exact opposite of what you want it to do. So that's sort of like the downfalls of intermittent fasting. A pro is that for the busy professional, you can sort of tighten your food, so you have sort of a little bit easier way of planning. I find that it's a little bit easier, especially you just don't have time for the prep work. But a real big con for me is that I find that I have a lot of patients who try intermittent fasting, but they're essentially sort of avoiding food. It's almost sort of what I call anorexic-like behaviors, and that's really not what any diet should be promoting. Yes, you can do it for health purposes and performance, but if you get to the point where you're actually afraid to eat, that's a red flag. That's definitely the diet not for you. And I actually have a really good friend who made an awesome comment. She said, any diet that tells me not to eat is not a diet for me. And I kind of agree with that. So, again, and also I do want you guys to know that there are head-to-head studies between intermittent fasting and a diet with calorie restriction. And both diets got similar results. So, just to let you know, there is no one way, better way, whatnot. You can choose either way, but in my preference, I would prefer to eat healthy foods in a calorie-controlled environment over trying to not eat from 8 p.m. to noon every single day for fear of passing out while driving. I'm a doctor, seeing patients, really not for me. But it is something that is wild out there, but I want you to come to my office if you have any questions. But on that note, I actually was watching the news. We were talking about it this morning on Channel 2 Daybreak that they quoted 50% of people have already broken their New Year's resolution. Are you one of them? And 50% of those people actually said gyms are intimidating. Are you one of those too? So I'm here to reach out. I know that you worked really hard for 4 weeks and got 0 results. And that is frustrating. So I want to invite you to our office for a free strategy session. Look, I'm just going to turn this around. We're going to spend 60 minutes together. We're going to get a full body composition report. If you have any type of lab work, if you have any medications, bring that along with you. And we're going to do a customized, personalized health plan. And I will actually turn you around and get your results instantly. So make sure you go to www.denverweightlossclinic.com and put a code word, fads are bad, in the comment section, and we'll get you in. That's a $295 value. Don't miss out on that. Does anybody have any other questions out there on intermittent fasting, paleo, Whole30? Again, these are really popular diets out there, and there are some pros and cons. We are here to just show you what has been proven, but we also want to show you that there are multiple ways to lose weight. You ultimately have to choose the one that fits you, and we can actually help that with you based on us knowing your body type. So thanks again for joining us. Root for whoever you want to this weekend for the Super Bowl. And if you want some healthy recipes, make sure you send an email to support@denverweightlossclinic.com. I'll give you a gift, and we'll send you a nice little recipe that you can bring to the Super Bowl party. But we hope the Broncos make it next year. So, all right, Janelle. Well, thanks for joining us. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to private message us after the video, and then we'll see you again next week. All right.